A student has sent a quiz question about a decision tree. They couldn't figure out what the answer was or how to interpret the question, and that's fair because we didn't look at decision trees in our workshops. A decision tree is, coming from game theory, is simply a visual representation, for our purposes anyway, it's a visual representation of what we did look at in the workshops, which was payoff matrices. Anyway, so we've got this question which says, consider the following game tree, or decision tree is another term for it, and we'll look at that in a sec. And then it says, for Anita, it is better to, each of these. Always cheat if Peter is faithful, cheat if Peter cheats, remain faithful if Peter cheats. Okay, so we've got this, so naughtiness is occurring in this question. One of the implicit assumptions behind the question is that both Peter and Anita are rational, self-interested agents. Okay, so let's look at this decision tree. So here we are, we've got a decision tree here. So this is just, as I said, just a visual representation of the payoff matrix. So we can think of it this way. If you look at the endpoint, you can see these are the payoffs. We've got 4 payoffs for the various combinations of strategies that could be used by Peter and Anita. The difference is that in principle, or for example, at least hypothetically, we would say that Peter would go first, he would move first, and then Anita would react to that, make a choice based on that. But we can also think of it as purely hypothetical. From Anita's perspective, like the question is saying we should, from Anita's perspective, where Anita thinks, if Peter were faithful, then what should she do? If Peter did cheat, then what should she do subsequently? All right, so here's how we interpret the tree. So we say, if Peter were faithful, then what should Anita do? Now Anita has a choice. Should she remain faithful or should she cheat? Now we can see there, for Anita is only thinking of Anita, right? Because we're assuming that Anita is a self-interested agent. So Anita's got a choice between 1,000 units of happiness or 50 units of happiness. 1,000 units of happiness is better. So we would say that Anita would remain faithful if Peter were faithful. What if, on the other hand, Peter cheated? Then what would Anita choose? Well, she can either remain faithful while he's cheating, or she can cheat too. So which should it be? Anita is only concerned about herself, so she looks at the outcomes, the payoffs for her. If she remains faithful, then she'll experience 1,000 units of unhappiness. However, if she cheats, she'll only experience 100 units of unhappiness. So less unhappiness is assumed to be better, so she would choose to cheat. If Peter cheated, then she would choose to cheat. Can we say that Anita has a dominant strategy in this case? No, because if Peter remains faithful, then she would choose faithful. If Peter cheats, she would choose cheat. That is, she won't choose one strategy no matter what Peter does. Her strategy will be, entirely dependent, and it will vary depending on Peter's choices, initial choices. Incidentally, now that we've got that set up, and we can assume that Peter knows about the structure of this game, so to speak, he can deduce the possibilities and can, on that basis, make his own choice. So Peter realizes that Anita's strategy, what she'll choose, either to cheat or to remain faithful, will depend on what he chooses to do. So what should he choose to do? Should he choose to cheat or remain faithful himself? If he remains faithful, he knows that Anita, he deduces that Anita will remain faithful. In which case he would take home, so to speak, 500 units of happiness. On the other hand, if he were to cheat, he's figured out, he's deduced, that Anita would similarly engage in a tit-for-tat strategy. She would cheat too. In which case, he would take home 100 units of unhappiness. Which is better? Should he remain faithful and get 500 units of happiness, or should he cheat and get 100 units of unhappiness? If we assume that he's a rational, selfish agent, he will choose to remain faithful. So he will choose this option. And this will become the equilibrium. This is our equilibrium here. Okie doke. So that's the answer to that. All right. What a lovely question.